Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 993. My opponent started out here with e4 and I went e5, the classical response. He plays knight f3 and defend the knight f6. And now he goes bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez, which is nice to see. Nowadays you get so many Italian games that you get kind of tired of it, or at least I do. And so it's good to see the old favorite still being played. So I kick the bishop with a6, that's the Morphy defense. He can take and go for the exchange variation, but he drops back, that's the main line. Play knight f6 attacking the pawn, also main line. And he castles, ignoring the attack, also main line. So the black has a number of choices here. The main line closed Ruy Lopez is bishop e7, that's the top choice there, quite a popular line. The main line open Ruy Lopez is to take the pawn, also very interesting play there. Although I think that seems to favor white overall. At least you don't see that played very much. And then the third choice here is b5, which can set up some different ideas. So b5, he drops the bishop back, and then I played bishop c5, which I call the Neo-Archangelsk. The move bishop b7, the second choice there, that's the Archangelsk variation. So there's kind of a wrinkle to that because the bishop often goes to b7 in this line. And there's a couple different ways that white can respond to this bishop c5 move. Most popular are c3 and a4. Both quite reasonable ways to play. I think I prefer c3 myself. But there are a couple of tactical tricks here I wanted to show you that help justify this Neo-Archangelsk variation. So the first tactical trick you should know if you're going to play this is this one. He can take the pawn and then play the fork, the center fork trick. And your best move here is to take the pawn. Sometimes this is not always the best move. Sometimes dropping the bishop back is the best move because you don't necessarily want to give up the bishop pair. But there's a particular point here. After you take, queen takes, so he's got his piece back and everything is even, but white has the bishop pair. What you do is you defend the knight with the move d6. And you're setting up a threat. There's a threat here of c5 to c4, trapping that bishop. So white has to play something definite here, something active. For example, get counterattack with f4. That leads to some crazy complications. Or he can play c3 to give the bishop an escape square on c2. And but both those lines turn out to be okay for black. So that's tactical trick number one you need to know. Here, let's go back to the game. Also in this position, in the c3 line, there's another tactical trick here that helps justify the Neo-Archangelsk. So if you play the main line here, you play d6, white plays d4, you drop the bishop back. At this moment, it may look like white can win a pawn, and a lot of times players will go for this. The idea is you win a pawn this way. You take on e5, take back, keep taking on e5, trade queens. So black has lost his rights to castle. Then you grab a pawn. So you might think, white's a pawn up and black can't castle. What can go wrong here? But actually, this turns out to be a good position for black. You have to play the move rook f8, and there's no great square for that bishop. And this pawn is loose. This pawn has not been defended. And black's pieces are very active. When that pawn goes, he's going to be coordinating on the f7 square, not only with the knight and bishop, but also with the rook, because the f-file has been opened. The best move here is bishop back to d5. This at least gets rid of one of the potential attackers of the f7 square. But then black plays bishop to b7. And white can't defend that pawn. If he brings the rook over to defend it, then f7 hangs again. And if he pushes this pawn forward, you just take it. So black gets the pawn back. Black has the bishop pair, and it's a good position for black. So interesting. So those two tactical tricks justify this opening. So let's go back to the game. So in the opening book, yeah, back up. Why is it still showing that? I said, let's go back here. Bishop c5, right? Opening book. Yeah. So that's if he takes with knight takes e5, or if he plays c3. And again, if he plays a4, you have a choice between bishop b7 or rook b8. But he played the move rook e1, so this is the game. And I just continued shoring up the center. It looks like bishop b7 was the most popular move in that position, but actually I looked at this with the chess engine, and d6 is a fine move as well. He played c3. I get in bishop b7 now. And then he went with no, what happened here? We've wandered off the main page here. All right, he played h3. So he went out of the book. So c3 would have been kind of the normal way to play. He went h3. And so when h3 is played, this bishop no longer has a home on this diagonal. Well, potentially it could come out to e6, but frequently it will go to b7 as well. Anyway, that's one of the ideas in this variation, is you keep this bishop back and you figure out where it's most useful depending on how white plays. So I just castled here. We're out of the opening book, so let's just look at it this way. He played c3 now. I played h6. This move, d5, is going to be coming with tempo. I'm going to be dropping my bishop back, and d4, and I don't want him playing d4 followed by the bishop out to pin my knight. That's a bit of an uncomfortable pin with my bishop outside the pawn chain. So he does play d4. I drop my bishop back, and now he plays a4. So this is interesting. I played rook b8, but the chess engine really likes bishop b7 here in this position, and it doesn't think white should take. It thinks white maybe should push d5 first, but it even thinks this is a interesting way to play. Rook takes and taking with the queen. Now, white is going to push on with d5 and try and make that battery look silly, but for a moment, this is kind of an interesting looking battery here. And maybe the queen can do something coming in on the queen side too. So, interesting way to play. Kind of an unusual position. Anyway, I just went with rook b8, which is the way I usually play. And the rook sometimes is needed to defend the b-pawn there. That can get loose. Sometimes you sacrifice the b-pawn to get activity too. Let's see. And he went ahead and took. I took back. Yeah, the chess engine prefers for him to take on e5, actually. And then he plays d5, closing the position down. And I go knight a5. I was thinking about knight e7, and the chess engine rates those two about equal. So I can say at this point I've gotten out of the opening, and seems that black is equalized. So this has been a good result for this opening. If you like this kind of position, then I can recommend it, because you can usually get positions like this. Let's see. After knight a5, he dropped his bishop back, and I continued with c6. That's also seems to be a good move. Chess engine approved. And now, actually, white makes the first mistake in this game. So I think up till now, it's sort of been a matter of taste and different ways of playing. And both sides have done well, and black has got basically an equal position. The chess engine thinks he should take here, and I should take back with the knight. That was my plan, to get this knight into the game. Maybe there's a weakness here, but I have active pieces, and this is well enough defended for the moment. And maybe I can push this pawn forward to disrupt his queen side at some point too. Instead, he played knight bd2. And this actually just loses a pawn. Unfortunately, I didn't take it, but I started off correctly. I take here. And now there's no reason not to just grab that pawn. It's undefended. When this knight came out, it blocked his queen's defense of that pawn. So he blundered, but then I counter-blundered with knight c4, and we got back to a position which is basically equal. Let's see, he continues with knight e4, a slight mistake. But then I make the next mistake here. I should have continued. Knight e4 is actually, there's a problem with it. I could have taken it and then played f5. And this is a decent position for black. The chess engine starts to like black here. That's why his knight e4 move was a slight mistake. Not a huge blunder. It looks for a second like maybe I can fork these pieces, but when I push the pawn forward, he trades it off. And then he can move his knight into d4. But he has this loose pawn here. And yeah, I have the bishop pair. I managed to get the bishop pair. I can bring this light squared bishop around to attack that pawn. And yeah, it's just a good position for black overall. So this would be an advantage for me. And it all goes back to his knight e5 move. If I had played correctly his knight e4 move and taken it and pushed f5. So he probably should have played something else there. But instead I went bishop b7, ignoring this opportunity. And now the pendulum swings. And now I've made enough mistakes that white is better. And well, it's a sharp position, so this can happen where it will go back and forth. So he plays queen d3, and he's got this nice mating threat here I have to respond to. And I played rook f to e8, which is just digging the hole deeper. You know, there's two moves here that kind of defend, but they also leave black worse. So I'm going to be worse in any case. Just simply playing g6 and giving up the h6 pawn. That's one way of defending. Or playing queen g6, and this defends, although it suffers some pawn damage. Actually, it's not good for white to take there right away. There's well, I have a counter threat on e5, so it doesn't win a pawn. But he can start pushing my knight around, and then bishop a3 is a pretty annoying move. Looking at my weak pawn back here, so this is just good for white as well. So so white is better in any case, but he's much better after I play rook f8. So white continues correctly with b3, kicks my knight back. I throw in the move e4, trying to complicate things. I know there's going to be problems on this diagonal. And he takes with the rook. And now I play knight e5, which actually is a blunder, although this helped me win the game. I had to take here. And after he takes, I can grab a pawn here. This is kind of a long-winded sequence, but well, let's go through it. It was interesting, and the game was short, so we have time for this. He played the check. He can play the check. I ran out with my king. Now he doesn't check and grab the rook right away because his rook is hanging. So he plays bishop b2. funny little sacrifice to distract my queen off of the c file here. Then the check. Then rook e8 to see my queen would have been able to maybe take there. Actually, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly and why this didn't work in the other line. Anyway, rook e8 check, knight e5 to block, and then queen takes rook, and I take the bishop. And he takes the bishop with check, and I bring my queen back. That was the importance of being on the c file. Queen gets to come back and defend. And so we have a position here where I'm down the exchange. He's about to win another pawn here in the center. Oh, no, actually my queen defends there, doesn't it? Yeah, anyway, I'm down the exchange. Cancel that. And so it's just not a good position for me. But that was the best I could do at this point. That's starting with the rook takes e4. Instead, I played my knight here. And there is a problem to this move. And we'll show you that. He played knight takes e5. And so that's his blunder. He blundered back right away. And actually, I'm better after that. But he could have taken with the rook. And you wouldn't think of this ordinarily because you think I can just take back and he's given up the exchange for nothing. But actually, he's given up the exchange in order to mate me. And here's the trick. Queen comes in with check. And then this bishop, which has been lurking back here, comes out to a3 and delivers a fatal blow. And now there's no way to stop the mate. You can only defer it for a few moves by throwing things in the way. But the bishop just chews through them. And then as soon as I block with the rook, the queen comes here and mates me. So there's no escaping the mate there. And if we go back, the key move here was taking the rook with the pawn. That opened up that diagonal, which allowed the bishop to come out to this square. So that's why rook takes e5 was the winning move there. So after rook takes e5, I can't take it, and I have to play g6. And then he can just, for example, trade out and grab a pawn over here. But he's just up a piece, right? Because he took the knight, and I never got a piece back. So that would certainly be winning, and even if I had seen that idea. So instead, he took with the knight, kind of the more natural way of taking, and he's going to be able to take back here and open up this diagonal quickly. But he left this diagonal open when he played that way. Well, actually, it was the file, the queen files. The file that the queen was on got opened up here. Played queen takes f2 check, and I am better here. Although he played king h1 and let me mate him. It's funny that after he played king h1, I sat and thought about this position for about a minute before I realized he was mating. The problem is I had just assumed he'd come here, and I was going to follow up with the check here. The king was going to come here, and I wasn't sure what the right continuation was here. Should I continue with the bishop coming in with check? Should I play the queen check? After the queen check, the king can just go back, and so there's a repetition. And after the bishop check, the king runs out, but I was trying to figure out if there was a mate there. So while I was trying to think about all of that, I was thinking about all of that. Even after he moved his king to h1, I was still trying to figure that out. And then I noticed, after I looked at the board, that his king wasn't on h1, it was on h2. And then I was saying, well, what went wrong there? Why isn't his king on h2? Was I supposed to throw in a check? How do I get his king to h2? That's what I was saying to myself. And I said, well, I can't play here. His rook will take my queen. I can't play here. His queen will take my queen. I can only play here. And that was when I noticed, oh, I play there and it's mate. Anyway, here, let's go back and look at that variation where he did play the right move. He plays king h2, queen g1 check, king g3. What is the right way to play this? Well, the answer is none of the above. The right way to play it is to take the knight here. And then there's some danger on this diagonal here. Plus, white wants to open up this diagonal. So rook e2 is actually the best move. And it looks pretty dangerous for a moment, but black has the nice move e4. It's all about diagonals in this game. What e4 does is it opens up this diagonal for the bishop. So the queen can't take. If the queen takes, then it's actually all over. Or if the rook takes, I guess I looked at this line. Rook takes, I can keep trading. And I can play the queen check. And then I can play this check. And if the king ran forward, there was actually a mating net in that direction too. Notice that both bishops can come and operate on these diagonals. Plus I have pawns I can push forward. So yeah, he's just losing there. So after e4, can't really take the pawn. He has to drop the queen back. And then the best move for me is actually to regroup here, drop my queen back. And we can pause and look at this position. I didn't take it any further. But the thing is that white's pawns are weak over here. They're hanging. I have one weak pawn as well. But the material is actually completely even. And the big difference is that white's king is more exposed. My bishops are better placed to exploit the position of white's king. And so it turns out to be just a winning position for black. So that's nice. But yeah, after queen takes f2 check, instead he went to h1. And eventually I noticed that there is a mate in one on the board and played it. So a fun game. Hope you guys enjoyed that and this little postmortem. And I'll see you next time. Bye now.